Hi Scott, we're here to talk about your professional development workshop at the 14th yEES conference in Copenhagen. This workshop, which you will be presenting alongside Silva Ferretti, is called Monitoring as Evaluation, Real-Time Approaches for Real Challenges. So we have a few questions here for you. What is the workshop about and why are you doing it?
Well, thanks. A lot of the workshop is about what it's not about. And what I mean by that is we're trying to nudge the practice of evaluation away from the kind of business as usual approaches, challenging the conventional distinction between monitoring and evaluation and trying to shift it more towards inclusive and participatory, what we call monitoring as evaluation. To a large degree, the workshops are in response to a lot of trends, or what I and Silva feel are bad habits in evaluation. But on a very practical level, it's a response to a real need for evaluation to help interventions and those who commission them to step back, see, and navigate the rapidly changing world that those interventions are impact in. The workshop's description, as it says, I've always seen this concept of a new norm as an oxymoron, because it applies a new equilibrium will kind of settle in where life will resume a degree of regularity. And in actuality, I think the new norm will be increasing frequency and magnitude of disruption. We're seeing how disruption could impact the evaluand, or the interventions that we evaluate. For just another example, take a quick look at the past decade. So we've had the fallout of the Great Recession, 2008 onwards, the European migration crisis, the election of Donald Trump, and the ascendancy of conservatism, the trade wars between the US and China, Brexit, COVID, Putin's war in the Ukraine, all of these things, if like I worked for over a decade with humanitarian organizations, all of these things are game changers. My wife works in international migration, game changer when you have someone like Donald Trump elected as a president in the US. And these things affect programming, and programming needs to be able to adapt to them. It's pushing evaluation beyond conventional methodologies to explore alternative approaches that embrace volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity.
And if I may, how does that relate to your workshop?
Well, a good question, bringing it back to the workshop. The workshop was Silva and myself will explore the different ways evaluation can be pursued to support emergent real-time learning, so you can pivot and react, understand and analyze and act rapidly in respond to change in unfamiliar contexts. We'll cover the basics of real-time evaluation, which largely emerged out of the humanitarian sector. But then we'll look at why real-time evaluation is receiving increasing attention as what I call complexity-friendly or system-savvy method outside of humanitarian contexts. Why is it being looked at in non-humanitarian contexts? And then we'll go beyond the standard approach to real-time evaluations and their conventional conceptualization, and explore other approaches that can support real-time evaluation, learning, and adaptive management. We'll question the conventional conceptualization and practice of monitoring and evaluation, which is largely based on this deterministic linear if-then type of thinking. And whereas monitoring as evaluation demands nimble adaptive approaches is contrasted to the prevailing management by blueprint, if you want to call it that. And these adaptive approaches to better capture learning in real time, to inform both operational but also strategic decision making. And this will require power shifts towards more localized actors and the rethinking of competencies and responsibilities within organizations. It parallels the attention, I think, on decolonizing evaluation, something that I think COVID helped to bring attention to, where expat independent evaluators weren't able to fly in and do the evaluations they used to be able to do. So there's more reliance on remote evaluation and using more local people to do evaluation. I think what I call the obsessive accountability disorder, OAD, that's so prevalent in evaluation, which favors commissioning methodologies and technologies for simple measurable designs or framings of project-based interventions where measurement is narrowly focused on a linear chain of predetermined results, typically confined to a particular time frame, usually dictated by funding cycles. It will challenge that. And you know, that business as usual, which I was saying, is kind of typified by external independent evaluators who are supposed to provide a more objective assessment, and they're parachuted in for a set, period of time. Maybe it's 2 to 3 months to do a baseline or a midline or a final evaluation, the classic baseline, midline, final evaluation recipe. And we're going to be challenging that. Now, monitoring as evaluation engages with local stakeholders on the ground, those who are implementing and affected by interventions. And it stresses cultural linguistic competencies and a deep knowledge of place. And it doesn't wait for reports that to be shared for the learning, reports that typically need to be reviewed and then have a formal management response. The learning is more real time so it can be used. We want participants to come to the workshop with a very open mind, because we want to kind of walk the talk of how we think monitoring as evaluation should be done and how we do the workshop too. As I've said, the mind is like a parachute. It works best when it's open. So we want, we recognize that the people coming to the workshop will have their own experience. It's a professional development workshop. Professionals are coming who bring in a whole set of knowledge and background. And we want them to apply their evaluative thinking to look at different ways that we can do evaluation that supports emergent learning and real-time evaluation. We want to challenge the usual ways of thinking about change, and we want the participants to get a taste of looking at the world through a complexity lens and not just through a narrow particular methodology. So we're not going to be teaching one methodology during the workshop. We really want to excite people about new possibilities.
And it sounds like an exciting prospect indeed. Scott, if you agree, I have another question. What do you see as the future priorities of evaluation?
Well, I think evaluation needs to transform itself if it's to support the transformational imperative of our times. And what I mean by that is humanity needs to transform if we want to be around in any civilized form in the next century. And as a profession in the business of assessing and advising, evaluation, it straddles theory and practice. It's very applied. I think evaluation is uniquely positioned to support what I call the transformational agenda. But it depends on the ability of evaluation to transform from within. And it's something that I've devoted a lot of research on, and I know Silva has as well. That's what actually brought us together. But this critique that I have on the praxis of evaluation is not distinct to me. I mean, I stand on the good shoulders of a lot of other evaluation thought leaders and practitioners who are looking at what needs to be transformed within evaluation. And hence a lot of attention on decolonizing evaluation, indigenous evaluation, and there's quite a, blue marble evaluation is looking at that, footprint evaluation as well. There's a lot of exciting stuff out there. And again, I think circling back to our workshop, our evaluation plans need to reach beyond a temporal box and provide more timely, iterative, evaluative thinking during implementation, and actively engage the various stakeholders who are involved and affected by the intervention. And by the way, looking at that temporal box, evaluation also needs to extend. We often talk about ex post evaluation. We need much more attention to go outside just evaluating during the intervention, but going far beyond the evaluation and really creating a cycle of iterative, even calling it evaluation, just iterative, evaluative thinking, and looking at different ways that we can nurture that in an organization. So even though their program or project has stopped, they're still working in that area. And this is where portfolio evaluation, I feel, can contribute to that organization kind of taking the pulse of how changes in that particular sector, if you want to call it, or area is involved. And I guess a couple other things I'd just say about the future is I think evaluation needs to go beyond, in a way, navel gazing or just focusing on the field of evaluation. We need a much more inclusive approach, transdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, but even outside of disciplines. And this is where I think a lot of the indigenous evaluation and south to south evaluation touches on. It might not be a discipline, but it's different worldviews and different perspectives. And I think that's a critically important part of the puzzle. Yeah. I was just thinking, I'm reminded of the movie. Have you seen the movie Don't Look Up?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's understandably received a lot of applause from people working on these wicked problems in the world: climate change, environmental justice, social justice. And I think business as usual is digging us a grave. And the future is we want evaluators to look up and reconsider how we go about our profession. And the workshop, we're looking at one part of that piece, which is monitoring as evaluation, but there are a whole lot of other parts of that piece, and it intersects way beyond evaluation. The web of solutions, if you want to call it that.
Thank you very much for these insights. I really can't wait to hear more about it. Just a reminder for the other who would like to hear more about it, that your workshop is going to happen on Monday, June 6th in Copenhagen. Thank you very much for coming here, Scott.
Well, thank you, and thanks to the yEES for allowing us to give this workshop and putting together an incredible lineup of other workshops. And of course, the conference itself looks like it's going to be amazing. So I'm looking forward to it.